Your brain on sleep deprivation does not just feel tired, it loses the anatomical ability to distinguish a mild inconvenience from a physical threat to your life. Inside your neural architecture, the biological bridge that connects rational thought to raw emotion completely disintegrates after just one night of poor rest. You are not simply irritable, you are operating with an emotionally uncoupled brain. To understand why you snap at the people you love when you are exhausted, we must journey into a hidden neurological plumbing system that only runs when you are asleep, and map a profound shift in brain connectivity that turns the most rational person into a hostage of their own primitive survival instincts. Think of your brain as a highly organized metropolis where two key players must constantly speak to one another to maintain order. In the front, directly behind your forehead, lies the prefrontal cortex, which acts as the calm, analytical chief of police. Deep in the emotional center of the brain sits the amygdala, a highly sensitive alarm system that detects danger and triggers the fight or flight response. Under normal conditions, these two regions are in constant high-speed communication. The prefrontal cortex keeps a steady, calming hand on the amygdala, whispering that the spilled glass of water or the passive-aggressive email is not an actual emergency. But when you deprive yourself of sleep, that vital communication highway is abruptly severed. What actually happens inside this disconnected state? In a groundbreaking study led by Dr. Matthew Walker in 2007, researchers put healthy adults into a functional magnetic resonance imaging scanner after a night of sleep deprivation and showed them increasingly disturbing images. The results were staggering. The sleep-deprived subjects showed a 60% increase in amygdala reactivity compared to those who were well-rested. It was as if the emotional centers of the brain had suddenly reverted to a primal state, reacting to minor stressors as if they were life-threatening predators. The brain scans revealed a startling truth. The physical connection between the rational prefrontal cortex and the emotional amygdala had essentially vanished. Without the regulatory brakes of the prefrontal cortex, the amygdala was running completely wild. But why does this physical disconnection happen in the first place? To understand this, we must look at a phenomenal biological process discovered only recently. Inside your skull, a silent cleaning crew works tirelessly while you sleep. This is the glymphatic system, a specialized waste clearance pathway that was first described by Dr. Maiken Nedergaard in 2013. During waking hours, your brain's normal metabolic activity generates toxic waste products, including a substance called adenosine and various harmful proteins. When you fall into deep, slow-wave sleep, your brain cells actually shrink by 60%, allowing cerebrospinal fluid to rush through the tissue like a dishwasher, flushing these neurotoxins out of your head and into your lymphatic system. If you skip sleep, this dishwasher never runs. Imagine a busy restaurant kitchen where the staff cooks 24 hours a day, but the cleaning crew never shows up. Piles of grease, rotting food, and dirty dishes pile up on every surface, blocking the walkways and causing the chefs to slip, burn themselves, and scream at each other. This is exactly what happens to your neural pathways when the glymphatic system is denied its cleanup window. The chemical trash of yesterday's thoughts builds up, clogging the synapses and physically preventing the prefrontal cortex from sending its calming signals to your emotional brain. You are left swimming in a soup of metabolic waste, and your emotional fuse is cut down to a fraction of its normal length. This neurological gridlock changes everything about how you experience the world and interact with the people around you. Suddenly, you are no longer the author of your reactions, you are merely a collection of exposed nerves waiting to be sparked. How does this actually look in your day-to-day life? Let us trace a very common scenario. Imagine you are well rested and your partner accidentally drops a glass bowl on the kitchen floor. The shattering sound is loud, yes, but your prefrontal cortex immediately analyzes the situation. It recognizes that it was an accident, assesses that no one is hurt, and prompts you to ask if they need help cleaning it up. Now, let us replay that exact same scenario after you have had only 4 hours of sleep. The bowl shatters, the sound hits your ears, and because your prefrontal cortex is offline, your amygdala interprets the sudden noise as an immediate, hostile threat. Before you can even think, you feel a surge of hot rage in your chest and you bark out an angry, accusatory question. You did not choose to be angry. Your brain was literally incapable of processing the event through a rational lens. This distortion of reality is not just a subjective feeling, it is a measurable cognitive bias. In a fascinating study published by Dr. Andrea Goldstein-Piekarski in 2015, researchers discovered that sleep-deprived individuals lose the ability to read facial expressions accurately. When shown images of neutral, friendly, or slightly concerned faces, the sleep-deprived participants consistently rated benign, harmless expressions as threatening and hostile. Pause and think about that for a moment. How many times have you misread your coworker's neutral email as a passive-aggressive insult simply because you were tired? How many arguments have you started with your family because your sleep-starved brain convinced you that their harmless comments were deliberate personal attacks? This is the psychological tragedy of sleep deprivation. It distorts your perception of social reality, making the world seem much more hostile and dangerous than it actually is. You begin to see enemies where there are only friends, and you react with a defensive aggression that feels entirely justified in the moment, but looks completely irrational once you finally get a decent night of sleep. The emotional damage this causes to our relationships and our peace of mind is immeasurable. We blame our personalities, our stress levels, or the behavior of others, completely ignoring the fact that our brains are simply running on empty, toxic fuel. Now that we understand the profound neurological machinery behind this emotional volatility, we are no longer powerless against it. You do not have to be a helpless passenger to your brain's rage switch. By implementing 3 highly specific, scientifically backed protocols, you can actively protect your relationships and your emotional stability, even when sleep is hard to come by. The first technique is what we call the 5-second amygdala intercept. When you are severely sleep-deprived and find yourself in a high-stakes conversation or a frustrating situation, your amygdala will try to hijack your reactions. To prevent this, you must use a physiological reset tool to manually force your nervous system out of a fight-or-flight state. The most effective way to do this is through a physiological sigh. Take 2 quick, deep inhales through your nose, one right after the other without exhaling, and then let out a slow, extended exhale through your mouth. This specific breathing pattern immediately reinflates the tiny air sacs in your lungs, causing carbon dioxide to rapidly leave your bloodstream and triggering an instantaneous drop in your heart rate. By doing this just twice, you send a physical signal to your brain that there is no immediate danger, bypassing the broken connection between your prefrontal cortex and your amygdala. It gives you those crucial few seconds of space needed to choose a calm response rather than a reactive explosion. The second protocol is the cognitive labeling hack. When you feel that sudden hot spike of irritation or anger rising inside you on a day when you are exhausted, you must immediately perform an internal diagnostic. Instead of identifying with the anger and believing that the external world is causing it, you must state to yourself, out loud if possible, this anger is not real. It is a biological distortion caused by a lack of sleep. By giving the physical sensation a precise, scientific label, you shift the cognitive processing of the emotion from the overactive amygdala back to whatever functional parts of your prefrontal cortex are still awake. It is like turning on a small flashlight in a dark room. You detach your identity from the emotion. You realize that you are not actually angry at your partner, your children, or the slow driver in front of you. Your brain is simply experiencing a temporary metabolic crisis. The third and perhaps most vital application is the glymphatic optimization window. Because your brain's waste clearance system relies heavily on slow-wave delta sleep to flush out those rage-inducing toxins, you must optimize the first 4 hours of your sleep cycle, which is when the majority of deep sleep occurs. To ensure this cleaning process happens efficiently, you must avoid eating large meals or consuming alcohol within 3 hours of going to bed. Digestion and alcohol metabolism require significant cardiovascular resources, which raises your sleeping heart rate and prevents your brain from entering the deepest stages of non-rapid eye movement sleep. If you disrupt this window, your glymphatic system cannot run at full capacity, and you will wake up with a brain that is still swimming in yesterday's metabolic waste. By prioritizing these first 4 hours of clean, uninterrupted, deep sleep, you give your brain the absolute best chance to wash away the chemical triggers of irrational anger. Once you understand the profound connection between your sleep architecture and your emotional regulation, your entire worldview undergoes a fundamental shift. You begin to realize that much of the hostility, impatience, and cruelty we see in the world is not a reflection of human evil, but rather a reflection of chronic, collective exhaustion. Think of the people who have snapped at you today. Think of the rude cashier, the aggressive driver, or the family member who lost their temper over something incredibly small. Instead of meeting their anger with your own defensive rage, you can now look at them through a lens of profound neurological empathy. You see them as they truly are, individuals whose prefrontal brakes have failed, whose brains are drowning in metabolic debris, and who are temporarily incapable of accessing their higher, more compassionate selves. This realization changes how you treat yourself, too. You stop viewing your own moments of weakness and irritability as permanent flaws in your character. You realize that you are not a bad person. You are a biological organism that requires maintenance, care, and rest to function as a civilized human being. Armed with this profound understanding of your brain's inner workings, you now hold the key to mastering your own emotional landscape. Do not let the quiet, invisible buildup of daily fatigue dictate how you treat yourself and the people who matter most to you. Protect your sleep like your very sanity depends on it, because, as we have seen today, it absolutely does. The journey to decoding the human mind is vast and full of hidden mechanisms that govern everything we do, think, and feel. To continue uncovering the deep neuroscience that explains your behavior and the actions of everyone around you, make sure you take the next step with us. What if the very way you make decisions is being silently controlled by a force you have never even considered? The next discovery we share will completely challenge your understanding of free will and choice, revealing a hidden biological compass that steers your life without your conscious permission. You will not want to miss what we uncover next.